What's up, Lockdown Legion? Welcome back to Nerds on Lockdown. I am Chris, and as always, with me is the great Aaron.
Hey, how's it going? How you doing, Chrissy?
What's up, man? Before we get started, I want to make sure that everybody out there is hitting that like button and subscribing and smacking that subscribe button if you guys haven't already. You know what I mean? Stay up to date with all of our new videos that are coming out, and all of our great nerdtastic things that we have in store for you.
Nerdtastic indeed.
Yeah, you like that, huh? Without further ado, Aaron, what do we have on the tab today?
Well, sir, we are going to be going over some of our favorite PlayStation 1 games. The original console in the PlayStation franchise. The not even a franchise. It's like it's a monster of a gaming platform.
Yeah. At this point, and it's kind of funny when that first came out, they didn't know how well they were going to do at that point because Nintendo was pretty much ruling the world, really. So this was the very first major platform. It's not the first CD-based or disc-based platform out there because you had CDI and Philips had done some stuff before then. But it's it's what made it popular. It started the whole, disc-based gaming industry as a whole.
Playability was so much better on this platform than the Saturns or the Sega CDs of the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, they ended up doing it because, just a little bit about the origin of PlayStation. Sony actually wanted to get into the gaming industry because they saw Nintendo and Sega becoming a big popular thing, and they said, well, let's try that, and we can do it disc based because at that time Sony, and I think they still do, they own the rights and the technology to the little eyes that read the games and music and DVDs and everything that you guys watch out there. They just basically they market it out. They license it out to other companies, but Sony actually owns the patent to that. So they were like, well, let's make our own thing. And they contacted Nintendo actually, and they said, hey, we'd like to partner up with you guys to make, and they were going to call it the Nintendo PlayStation, and they were going to partner with CDI to do it at that point. And they actually made a mock-up. You guys can go on the internet and actually look at this. It actually sold on eBay not too long ago for like $500,000 or something like that, something crazy. There's only one of them in existence, and it wasn't working to their liking, so Sony basically broke off the contract with Nintendo, and they said, all right, so because Nintendo wanted to do disc-based and cartridge-based. They wanted to kind of do what Sega CD was doing at that point, and that wasn't really working for Sega, and Nintendo saw that, and they were like, okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our own console, and from there, that's when the PlayStation was born, and they just kept the name PlayStation. So that's sort of the origin story of PlayStation. So I thought that was kind of a cool story, and you guys can actually go on YouTube and YouTube all that. Like it's really cool to see how this company that did nothing but stereos and movie, all this other stuff kind of just became this game giant, out of nowhere.
Right.
So
building the empire.
It's really cool. Now let's start off with your first one, man. What do you got for us that is just awesome, I guess, All
right. Well, my first one that comes to mind is going to be the original Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Nice.
Growing up, I wasn't physically agile enough to be a skateboarder, so getting on the game was about the closest I was going to get to ever performing an ollie or, kick up or whatever. I still remember for hours just playing that warehouse level where you pop out the glass window and you hit both sides and you got all these different interactive angles, and you can grind or you can do flips and all this cool shit. And
yeah, man.
I just remember the freedom of having the airborne character. It threw me back to a good time on the NES where I used to play Skate or Die.
Yeah.
And this was like, the modern day in its time,
the
counterpart
3D version, of it.
Yeah, and it had a cool soundtrack. It was one of the early games that would incorporate real bands and real music into it. Like,
I feel like it was one of the first ones to have that like massive soundtrack, because some of the bands on there at that time, that was SoCal punk and like skate punk and all that stuff was getting really big.
Mhm.
And you had a bunch of bands that were just, you had Bad Religion on there, and you had like Strung, no, not Strung Out, what was it? Lagwagon was on there, and like a bunch of bands, Goldfinger, and I mean, all through the Tony Hawk games have always been good soundtracks. My
True.
personal favorite one is Tony Hawk 2, but I'm just saying, like, from like a soundtrack perspective, like, got to be some of the best soundtracks in video games ever. So
Demonstrate.
yeah,
Good
dude.
fun game. I mean, obviously other levels and other fun playability, but my favorite level was always Warehouse. I don't know what they called it, but it was
I think it was just called Warehouse, to be honest
Warehouse.
with you.
Okay, cool.
But let me ask you a question. So I don't know if you know, because I know you have you play PlayStation 4, right?
Yeah.
The new Tony Hawk comes out September 4th. For it's the not remaster, but the remake. I don't know if you've seen anything on it or watched any videos, dude, but it's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 bundled together as a remake, and it looks fantastic. It looks so good. And they added some music, and in fact, you can actually go in, speaking of soundtracking, you can go in and you can change the music up and put only the songs you want to listen to on and stuff like that.
That's
You
cool.
know,
Yeah,
it's
I've
really
seen
cool.
like built-in playlists and stuff. I think one of the new wrestling games has a built-in playlist maker too.
Yeah.
It's a neat feature, man. I mean, anytime you can customize and really get it down to the level, the amount of time you want to spend working on it, you can get a lot of really neat customization.
Yeah, man. I'm super stoked for that game. I'll actually be playing that on my Twitch channel. Yeah,
I'll
so
take a look.
yeah, dude, it's gonna be freaking awesome. All right, man. I guess my first one, I'll go with a fighting game from '98. It was published by Sony, and this game wasn't widely known, but I thought it was just like the best freaking fighting game for me, anyways. That I want to preface by saying the best 3D fighting game, because I do have a 2D fighting game on here later, but the best 3D fighting game, and this game is called Cardinal Sin, and Sin is spelled S-Y-N.
S-Y-N, I remember that.
Yeah, that was the name of the major character in her name was Sin. And basically what this is if anybody out there is watching this video, or you, Aaron, or whatever, have ever played a game called Dark Rift or War Gods, back in that sort of time period, they were on the N64, and I think Dark Rift was on PlayStation 1 as well. It's got that sort of same fighting style where it was a complete polygon 3D kind of fighting,
like Virtua Fighter, but better.
Oh yeah, way better than that, obviously. But it was like you can do special moves, and you know what I mean. It was kind of bloody. It had that sort of. It was like if you took like a 3D fighter and mixed it with Mortal Kombat, and but they're fantastical sort of characters. Like one of them can turn into a dragon, you know, things like that. A fun game. I really enjoyed it. It was really funny about that game is, I don't know, after 20 years of not even playing that game, right? I kind of went back and I was like, what was the name? I kept thinking to myself, what was the name of that fighting game back in the day? You know what I mean? Because it'd been a long time since I played that. And then I finally found it, and I loaded it up on my PlayStation 1 Classic, and I was like, dude, I forgot how much I really love this game. And yeah, that's why I made the list, because I was just like, I continually go back to playing that game. So I love it. Yeah, Cardinal Sin,
bro.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a similar game. I almost chose it, but I'll tell you what I chose instead in just a quick moment. It was called Bloody Roar 2.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
And it was one of those similar where you could morph into at a certain point whatever creature counterpart there was for each character. And you know, it was a bloody game, and that was cool times too. But that one was beaten out on my list by Tekken 2.
Yeah, Tekken.
For the fighting games. One of the earliest fighters I remember playing a lot of and playing all the way through. And as you play with each character, you get different storylines playing out and whatnot. You know, I love the combat sense of you know, the grapple and you know, I used to use the cop character. I forget his name, but long-haired Asian cop character.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
You know, and he, you know, had all kinds of wicked kicks, and you know, he could lay on the ground and kick ups and all kinds of cool stuff. And you know, Yoshimitsu, I think, was the bad dude with the bad haircut and that shit.
Yeah.
But, just I like the Tekken game, and I had kind of, other than wrestling games, I don't really play a lot of the fighting games, but that one I remember putting some serious time into really enjoying it.
Yeah, King was my favorite in Tekken.
Yeah, the
The
tiger.
guy with the tiger head. Yeah. Great game, dude. I still have the Tekken. In fact, I still play Tekken 7, the newer one that is out, on PlayStation.
Hmm.
I think I have it on Xbox. I have it on Xbox, but I play it a lot. It is one of the, I will say, I'm used to more of the faster um games, sort of like Marvel vs. Capcom, sort of, or some of the Japanese fighting games that are really fast,
Right.
a quick paced. Tekken is sort of a slower one, and in
Yeah.
fact, I think the slower games are harder to play because
You have to be more
they're
calculated.
yeah, you have to be more calculated, and you got to figure out what your counters are and stuff a lot better, and it's a lot harder for me to play, so I find it a challenge, and it's actually really fun to do that. So yeah, Tekken's always been a great series through the years.
Yeah. Shit.
um
If they made it to 7 of them, they must be doing something right.
yeah, right. And they have Tekken tournaments around the world still. I mean, they have Tekken championships and stuff. And
Nice.
yeah, that a fighting game that did not, since we're talking about fighting games, a fighting game that did not make my list, but I think it was a fantastic one, was Soul Calibur as well.
Right.
They had a Soul Blade was the name of the first, I think the first one, but Soul Calibur, dude, they had the ones where you got onto GameCube era, and it was like you could get like Yoda and Darth Vader, and like it was just really cool. Like
Right.
I thought it was cool to have those extra characters in those games.
Right.
But
And actually, just to kick off of that, do you remember Masters of Terrascasi, Star Wars, the fighting game that they actually came out with
yeah,
licensed Star
yes,
Wars?
yes, I remember that.
And it was a big dream. Oh my God, we're finally going to get to fight with Chewie, and we're finally going to get to
Uh-huh.
fight with Vader and Yoda. And then we played the game, and we're
It was
totally
bad.
disappointed
Yeah, it was bad.
so
Cool,
badly.
man. All right.
Anyway,
I'm gonna go on to a racing game.
there we go.
For my next one, man. Now this isn't just no ordinary racing game. This game came out in '96 by a company called Single Track,
Mhm.
and Sony published it obviously because it was they made like 4 of them, I think. And this is a game called Jet Moto.
Oh hell yeah, that was one of the earliest games I had.
Yeah, man. And basically, it was think of a hovercraft. It's like a hovercraft jet bike, basically.
Yeah.
And it was actually sponsored by Mountain Dew, which was kind of crazy because Mountain Dew was all over that damn game, right?
Mhm.
And you would get into the game, and you would basically, you're racing hoverboards or hover like bikes.
Yeah, like
Through
jet ski looking.
Yeah, it was weird. And you had all these different environments and stuff. And I just remember it being one of the first games where when you because everybody that knows the PlayStation 1 knew that they didn't have dual analogs yet. Like we
Yeah.
were stuck with just the D-pad, right? Still. And then when you went around a turn, this is the first time I remember watching like a motorcycle game or something like that, where you went around and turn, and the way you turned and their body moved is how much you actually moved over. It kind of had the physics of
Yeah.
an actual motorcycle and how that moves. And I was tripping out on that, and I thought that was like the coolest technology ever when when that game first came out.
Badass, man. I remember
Yeah, dude.
there was an Arctic level, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
It was a big
there's a
snowy
swamp
mountain.
level, an Arctic level. I think there was like
Yeah.
a sea level. There was so much, but like I said, I think they made 4 of them, and they were all really good games. But the first one, I think, is because when I was a kid, like, you know what I mean, like it brings back
Yeah.
memories. I go back to play it, and it's just like it's the original. So
Yeah. The sequels weren't bad. But the first one really was special
yeah,
for
for sure,
sure.
man. All right, man. What do you got?
All right, I'm gonna go with one that's a driving game, not a racing game.
Okay.
This one came out. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know the year, but I know that it was a mission-based game. It was one of the earliest games that had like a full cityscape you could drive around in. And
Open world.
yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
And the gig was called Driver.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd have to kind of evade the cops and go
Uh-huh.
do these missions, and you can
Yeah.
get out of the vehicle and do some shenanigans. It wasn't quite GTA, but it was getting there. Like they had like an interesting San Francisco related level, and like maybe like a Florida Keys level that you would drive from island to island and stuff like that. It was really
Yeah.
interesting. Just putting a lot of hours in, getting airborne and running from cops and stuff.
I remember that game. That was the one with the yellow car on the
Yeah.
cover, and that definitely was like I think when that first came out, that came out after Grand Theft Auto 3, right?
It
Or
was
was it before?
It was before 3, and it was after the overhead 1 and 2.
Oh,
The
okay, okay,
OG
yeah,
overhead view.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So 3, so it was after 3. So it was sort of like a, or was it before 3? You said?
It was before the ability to get out of your car, walk up to a random person, and punch them in the throat.
Okay, so basically, Grand Theft Auto took that idea, and was like, "Hey,
Next
let's
level. Next
yeah,
level.
let's make it to the next level." But yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that game. I remember being able to go up ramps and stuff, and doing
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah,
There's
great
some
game, dude.
good vehicle damage
Hmm.
and running from the cops and stuff before you could shoot back at them and do all kinds of terrible things in the GTA games.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I remember that. All right, man. My next one's a sort of like a sci-fi space adventure game.
Hmm.
It doesn't all take place in space, but you go from planet to planet in this like solar system. Think of it as like a Star Fox-ish, but like with more of an adult theme. And this game was called Descent.
Hmm.
Now this game was I think one of the very first games on PlayStation. This came out in '96, I want to say. It was published by Parallax Studios, and it was like a basically it was back in the day when PlayStation had the long boxes, right? Like the long
Yeah.
box PlayStation games, right? And it actually came out on computer a couple years prior, and then I remember it got ported to PlayStation.
Hmm.
And I remember picking it up a little after that, but it was basically it was the very first time you were able to kind of do this first person 3D view ish, where you were in this like cockpit.
Hmm.
It was like weird. It was like a cockpit, and you would go through. It's like on a railer sort of thing, or on a rail, where you go and you would fly through these tunnels,
Hmm.
right? And you would shoot things that are in the tunnel, and then you would come out of the tunnel, and you would have to fly from the tunnel to the next planet to go into another tunnel and go in. And I remember having to go into like these little hubs in the tunnels, and you got to figure out what tunnel to go into. And I would always crash in the effing wall because like you can't see anything, right? And like it was so freaking like ugh. But the game was so much fun, and I remember it a lot because I remember playing with my dad on that game, and we would get like
Awesome.
super frustrated like playing the stupid game. But I remember it was just really cool because it was the first time I felt like I was in the cockpit, and I got to like look out the window and kind of, you know what I mean, do that. And it really had some, to me at that time, had some great 3D like graphics. It was like everything was around me type of deal. So
Right. I remember that early age where graphics became everything.
oh yeah, yeah,
Where a game that had absolute shit gameplay
yeah.
but had great graphics was
And you're
still
like, whoa.
whoa, it's amazing. Yeah, but you got to
uh
hit 36 buttons to get the character to jump.
Yeah, and then now that we're older, now that I'm older and I'm still a big gamer, I go back and I go, man, gameplay is so much more important to me than what it
Right.
looks like, dude. It's
Yeah.
like a big shift. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, for sure. That's why a game like Pac-Man is still relevant nowadays. It's very solid,
simple.
very simple
Yeah,
gameplay, and once you nail the formula, whatever your formula is, stick with it, and don't over embellish.
exactly.
A lot of sequel games have done that, I think. Um, okay, so I'm going to roll into this one right here. This one was a lot of fun. Also, it was kind of culturally educational. This game was a fighter, one-on-one fighter, but
Okay.
it was more of a 3D world, not a flat screen, or like a 2D, I guess you'd call it, right? Like a Mortal Kombat,
Yeah, it's 2D. It's yeah.
left to right only.
Uh-huh.
This was I don't want to say samurai, but definitely sword centric kind of game called Bushido Blade.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember correctly, your character was a decision, and then the weapon they used was a decision on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
which gave you additional versatility versus like a Ninja Turtle format where if you got Donatello, you've got that weapon, or if you got Michelangelo, you've got
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
nunchucks.
yeah.
Um, and they had variations of the sword and different knife based weapons, and then you would do
Mm-hmm.
battle in these bamboo fields, these really interesting sorts of environments that a lot of the fighting games
Yeah.
did provide. So not only did they hit it out of the park with a unique concept that hadn't been done, the strikes and the battles that would take place with the swords, and then the variations of how a fight could look based on the weapons you chose, really made for a lot of variation and a lot of replayability.
Yeah.
Um,
That game, that's the one with like the white cover kind of snowish white
Yes,
cover with the sword, like in
multiple
the
swords kind
banner.
of in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That game is actually like used like
expensive.
100 and something dollars, dude, right now.
Yeah,
Like it's a really expensive game.
I remember back in the Video Depot days, dude. When that game was like $9.99 used.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's funny. It's interesting that our history goes back that far to that
Yeah.
point, and it was game centric back then. You
Yeah.
know, at the time, that was your big draw going into Video Depot more often than not, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, games. I would go in there and pre-order the
Yeah.
whatever would come out or buy the newest system, you know,
Yeah.
there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Anyways, sorry, a little memory lane shit there, but yeah, Bushido Blade, y'all check it out.
Oh,
It's
man.
really cool
Yeah,
if
it's a
you
good
can find
game.
it.
It's a good game. Yeah, if you can find it, man, or just you know what I mean. Not
Mhm.
saying going download the ROM or whatever, but get yourself a PlayStation Classic and have somebody help you out with that. Um, my next one's another racer. But I think this is the classic sort of uh arcade racer. I want to say it's a really hard game, and I'll preface by saying it's probably one of the hardest racing games I've ever played in my life, and it's so hard it's frustrating because you go anyways. This is before I get into it. This is Ridge Racer, the original Ridge
Yes,
Racer.
where collisions were basically just you
You
bouncing
just
off
bounce
of
off
other
the
cars,
wall, right? Yeah.
boingy boingy
Um,
boingy.
but when you go to drift around a corner, man, like if you just don't do it just right, you're going right. But I think this game brings me back so many memories because this is another Dad and Me game that I
Yeah.
played a lot, and I just remember the soundtrack to this. Like it's in my head because it's like one song, because there was only like 4 tracks in this whole game, right? And you
Mhm.
get to pick out of 4 cars. It was a Namco game. Came out in '94, so it's one of the early ones.
For sure.
And I believe it was an arcade before it became a PlayStation port. And it's just such a fun but frustrating game. And I did bring this one up too because not too long ago I bought myself I found a PlayStation 2 steering wheel,
Mhm.
racing steering wheel. I bought I found a NASCAR one, brand new. It's really cool because I have a bunch of NASCAR games on PlayStation 2 and stuff. And um,
Yeehaw.
yeah, I actually hooked it up on my PlayStation 1 to play a couple of games, racing games on there, and some Gran Turismo. And I threw in Ridge Racer to play it. And man, will I tell you, it is one of the hardest things. That is so hard to turn, but it was such a blast just to try to figure it out. But yeah, so Ridge Racer, man. Ridge Racer. Are you still there? We are having technical difficulties.
Totally lost you there, pal.
There you go. There you go. Now you're there. Now you're back.
Yeah, I didn't leave, bro.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
You got frozen in the.
So did you. Yeah, so did you. Anyways, I told a nice story. I'm sure people will see it.
Insert nice story here.
Yeah, right. Cool, man. So let's go to your number one, man.
All right. Well, I gotta ask. To my recollection, the Grand Theft Auto 3 was the first one you can get out of the car, walk around in
Yeah.
3D, and
Yeah,
start the
GTA 3.
shenanigans. That didn't occur until PS2, right?
Yeah, that was PS2.
Okay. So then, in order to answer this question, my answer for drop number 1 here is going to be Grand Theft Auto number 2, the British
Oh,
one.
okay. Yeah.
The first one was, of course, fun. The second one had a little bit better graphics, a little bit better gameplay. You could still run over packs of people on the street, doing all kinds of things you shouldn't be able to get away with doing. It wasn't a groundbreaking. I mean, the first one was groundbreaking. The second
Yeah.
one was just an improvement on the first one, I thought, and the third one took it ultimately to where we are today, which is insane.
That was the one that kind of broke the mold for a lot of things. Yeah. For sandboxing, sandbox gaming, for sure.
For sure. But I do really enjoy that second one. I like that you could drive around in little Mini Coopers and things like that.
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, there's like a big row of Hare Krishna dudes that you could run over and get a bunch of points and all that stuff. No offense to the Hare Krishna folks, I would never hit you with my car, but just in a digital only space, that was an entertaining aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Just playing, driving for points. But
Yeah. It was like a modern day version of oh, what's that movie where they go and they hit people for points and all that stuff?
zombie
Death Race 2000.
Oh, okay, yeah. Double taps.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fairly simple. I know a lot of people probably think by way of comparison that 1 and 2 were kind of crap. But you have to start somewhere.
They're classics, man.
Yeah,
they're classics for sure.
And it was good times. Good inappropriate giggling happening like schoolgirls.
Yeah, I remember playing that game. I wasn't too into it because I'm not too into top down. Sort of, it's hard for me to play. But I remember 3 going over your house and we would have fun with 3 and just do dumb stuff and you know what I mean. Yeah, it was great. But cool, man. My number 1 too is going to be one of those games that is terrible. It's probably people will go why, but I think it's one of the games that started sort of a revolution of this type of game. The series is no longer made, but this game, and I'll tell you the reason why it's on my top, but this game was my very first PlayStation 1 game. It's the game that I got for Christmas with the PlayStation 1 because I had begged for this game, right? And those of you who know me, I'm a huge football fan. I'm a massive NFL college football fan. And this game I thought was like the coolest graphics ever. And this game is called Game Day. It was the very first Game Day. In fact, I still have the long box, PS1 version of it. I love it. 96 came out. Sony published it. It was the very first sports game, which is really cool, to feature motion captured people, like graphics.
Yeah.
Right? So we're used to like the old Madden and Joe Montana sports talk football where it was like sprites, right? It was like very colorful sprites. And then Game Day came in and they used motion capture things, sort of like Mortal Kombat did, back in the day. And for a while there, it was the most realistic game, and it was the game where you could catch the ball and kind of, hurdle and, spin and stiff arm. And I mean, it was so much fun to me and my friends. We would sit there and we would just play Game Day all day long. Anyways, the reason why it's so special to me, because it was my very first PlayStation 1 game, very first game I ever popped into a PlayStation 1, right? Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where in my memory, that's probably going to be one of my most fond memories of any Christmas I ever had with my parents. You know what I mean? It was because I think for me, PlayStation, I'm a huge Xbox fan too, you know what I mean? But PlayStation, at that time was the thing that I had to have, you know what I mean? Like it was the epitome of video gaming, and to be able to do that and get the game that I wanted and stuff, it just, you know what I mean? It kind of brought back good memories for me. So that is my number 1 Game Day.
That's awesome, dude. It's
cool,
good.
man.
It's good to be able to tie in the games to specific people you played with. I think that takes these experiences to another level.
I think that's what makes a not necessarily a bad game, but a game that not everybody thinks is great.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes it and it makes it, somewhat better or a meaningful.
Yeah. Sentimental attachment.
Yeah. For an example, there's a game on PlayStation 2 called Eden's. I can't remember it. I have it. Eden Project. It's called the Eden Project. And basically, it was one of the first games where you can have a multiplayer of 4 people on the same screen and sort of like what GoldenEye did, right?
Yeah.
And you can shoot each other, but you had different characters. And I always used to be the robot. But I remember playing with my friends back in the day. And I remember this game vividly, and we would have so much fun just laughing and playing, right? And then I bought it later on in life, a couple, 3 or 4 years ago. I had to find it on Amazon and buy it, and I finally found it, bought it, and I was trying to play with my wife and kid, and I'm just sitting here going, man, this game is terrible.
Yeah.
Right? But my memories of it were so much fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't terrible when you played it. It just has become outdated in its functionality compared
Yeah,
to what you've
exactly.
played since then. You're
It was so
conditioned.
hard to like control. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyways, man, what do you got for your honorable mention?
Well, we did an episode not too long ago covering general console favorite games, and that hit all the different platforms. This
Hmm.
one appeared there and represented well, and I couldn't have an episode about the PS1 without also, even in shorter breath, bringing up Twisted Metal #2.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
without getting into a whole other thing, it's cruising around London, blowing my
The
friends
Eiffel
up
Tower.
with
Yeah.
Spectre is
Spectre.
will forever be awesome to
I'm
me.
a Mr. Grimm guy. But Spectre, dude, yeah, and then blowing up the Eiffel Tower and then going up the Eiffel Tower, and that game, we've talked about it before, but it's a classic, like instant classic.
For sure.
It's
And
so good.
all the levels still stand. I mean, to this day, they're
Oh
all very
yeah.
fun and still
Yeah.
very playable.
It was one of those rare exceptions where that number two was better. Like, for me anyways, was better
Yeah,
than that first one, So it was
for
so
sure.
good, man. All right, so my honorable mention is a fighting game. It came out in 99 called from Capcom, called Capcom versus Marvel. Everybody knows this game. This is massive freaking hit of a game. Anyways, I picked it because it's possibly one of my favorite fighting games of all time. I love it. Even my kid loves it. We still play today. You know what I mean? And I still
So
buy all the Marvel versus Capcom games when they come out. So
so that would imply like the Street Fighter cast against Marvel characters.
yes, exactly. And
Dope. So
it's
like
just it's
Guile against Wolverine or something like that.
yeah, exactly. And then you could put two together if you want, tag team, stuff like that. So
Ooh.
super fun. Love it. So yeah, Capcom versus Marvel. And then before we go, I do want to mention my wife wanted to put an honorable mention in here because she's a big PlayStation 1 fan. It was one of her first, consoles.
Bring it
Um,
on.
and what you see before me on my head, Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage. She loves that game. That's her favorite PlayStation 1 game. So we constantly still play that. So, anyways.
Fabulous. Little purple dinosaur. No, he's a dragon. He's a dragon.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up another episode with Nerds on Lockdown. Thank you, Aaron, for being on again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely, man. And if you guys want to hit us up on our social media, it'll be down below in the description. Go ahead and check out our Facebooks and what have yous. And go ahead and in the description or in the comments below, man, let us know what your favorite PS5 or PS1 games are. We're not to the 5 yet. We're almost to the 5, guys. So that'll be a future episode.
Nearly there.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, that's it for us today. Thank you guys once again. Thank you to the Lockdown Legion. And we'll see you next time. Peace.